This is an aerial photo of Barcelona. Looking at it, you'll notice that the entire city is basically built in these square-shaped blocks. They're known as manzanas, an ambitious urban design plan that was created to help neighborhoods become more accessible to pedestrians and reclaim space for the community. For that, Barcelona has one man in particular to thank: Ildefons Cerdà. The story goes that during the Roman Empire, Barcelona had walls built and expanded around the city, which you can see here much later during the 15th century. Now take a look at this photo of Barcelona during the turn of the 19th century. It's still trapped in by those same walls, but now with a fortress citadel built to suppress any threats and keep the city entrapped. You see, Barcelona wasn't allowed to expand. Through hundreds of years, the population grew, but the land did not. By the 1850s, Barcelona had a density of 856 inhabitants per hectare, compared to somewhere like Paris that had just 400, and it was all inside these walls. This, in turn, caused the city to almost literally suffocate. Sanitation was horrible, mortality rates just kept rising, and unrest was everywhere. It was only then they decided to finally tear down the walls, and that's where Ildefons Cerdà comes in. Known as one of the greatest urban planners of all time, he was the one who ultimately designed Barcelona. This is Cerdà's 1859 modified plan for how Barcelona should expand. He proposed to unite the old city with smaller towns that surround it. His project took the name Eixample, which is Catalan for expansion. This was Ildefons Cerdà's brainchild. He envisioned a neighborhood without social class division, living in octagonal blocks with an internal yard, with an equally spread population and without exclusive areas for the rich or poor. Originally, each manzana, which was named after the Spanish word for apple, and block, was to be built up on only 2 or 3 sides, 16 meters high and 20 meters wide, with a recreational green space in between them. Sort of like this, which was a plan for 2 of Cerdà's blocks out of an 1863 booklet. Now, if you're looking at Barcelona from above, you'll see the backbone of Cerdà's 1859 design has largely influenced what we see today. Well, sort of. You see, the manzanas we see today aren't totally representative of what Cerdà wanted. It was corrupted and changed due to commercial and political influences. In fact, by 1872, about 90% of the blocks were estimated to be in violation of his guidelines. If you look at this photo here, you'll see the top left, which was Cerdà's original version of them, and then how it's been manipulated throughout time. The manzanas were often built on all 4 sides of the block's interiors, rather than the intended 2 or 3. The initial height of no more than 16 meters was eventually changed to 24, reducing in a garden space. By 1890, the building occupied an average of 70% of the block's area, compared to the expected 50%. By 1958, the total volume of space on the manzanas occupied by buildings had grown from Cerdà's envisioned 67,200 square meters to 294,771. All these things resulted in the bottom right photo of the block which you see here, and that's not even all. The blocks were only ever built up even more since. Commercial pressures meant that blocks set aside for schools, gardens, and other civic facilities were given over to parking spaces, commerce, or simply neglected. This is also why, if you look at aerial photos of Barcelona, you might notice the lack of green areas and trees. There are still some there, don't get me wrong, but it's not even close to how it was originally intended. Though this has been changing, kinda. In the early 2000s, in a joint venture between the city of Barcelona and various Catalan banks, the Pro Eixample Foundation was formed in an attempt to reinstate some of Cerdà's original intentions. The main goal was the recovery and conversion of the enclosed inner courtyards of the manzanas into publicly accessible, usable green space. These were the 50 attempted block recovery locations, representing roughly 100,000 square meters of space. The problems, though, were that this could only happen when a part of a manzana becomes free to be reclaimed, which is very rare and could take decades for an opportunity to arise. And many of these reclaimed courtyards lack a standout landscape to do anything with as well. Sometimes it worked, such as with the Jardín de las Torres de las Aguas, where the courtyard conversion made it a popular and well-used space, but it mostly didn't. As a result of these greedy modifications to Cerdà's plans, Barcelona today is still kind of suffocating 150 years later. They currently have just 6.6 square meters of green space per resident. And when you compare that to, say, London's 27 or Amsterdam's incredible 87.5 green spaces per resident, it's shocking to say the least. The city of Barcelona also has the highest car density in the EU, with 6,000 vehicles per square kilometer. Yet private cars account for only about 20% of all trips, but they occupy 60% of the space, mainly for parking. Studies also show that air pollution alone causes 3,500 premature deaths a year in Barcelona's metropolitan area. To be fair though, all big cities sort of suffer the same fate. But that's not the only type of pollution they are struggling with. Barcelona is also one of the worst cities in the world for noise pollution. About 57% of their citizens live in areas with higher levels of noise than recommended by the World Health Organization, making it harmful for their health. These factors have given rise to the possible solution known as superblocks, or superias in Catalan. Now, what are superblocks? Well, the basic idea is to identify a 3x3 grid of 9 blocks, kind of join them together, and then restrict vehicle traffic to the streets around the perimeter. There's just one lane within the superblock. Only essential cars are allowed in, and they're restricted to a speed of just 10 kilometers an hour. Street parking has also been replaced by underground parking. As a result of all of this, the interior streets then become available for walking, biking, and expanded green space. Being inside a superblock is almost like being in a little village, with the total size of them being around 400 by 400 meters. It's not necessarily a new idea to Barcelona either, having been brainstormed in 1958 when architect Oriol Bohigas recommended joining 9 city blocks to restructure the existing urban fabric of the Eixample for modern transportation concepts. The idea truly was born in the late 1980s when Barcelona was preparing to host the 1992 Summer Olympics. The city hired Salvador Rueda to develop a solution to reduce noise levels to the internationally recommended 65 decibels. He found that the biggest source of noise was through traffic in residential neighborhoods, and that's obviously what needed to be changed. Hence the idea of the superblock. It was 1993 when the first superblock was implemented, in the neighborhood of Alborn, and since then there have been 6 more introduced. The results, to say the least, have been insane. Take for instance the 2 superblocks located in Gracia. A study of the neighborhood before and after the superblocks found that foot travel in the area has increased by 10% and bicycle traffic by 30%, while vehicle traffic declined by 26% in the general area and 40% within the superblock, or the superblock in the Sant Antoni. Since its implementation, it's gotten rid of 82% of the cars that used to be on the street. Nitrogen dioxide levels are 33% lower in some of the intersections reclaimed by pedestrians, and noise pollution has also dropped by 4.7 decibels. I could go on more, but the point is, superblocks work. And that's why the city of Barcelona plans to create 503 more of them over time. It sounds insane, but it only costs about $300 million to make it happen. The money could be recouped fast, too. I mean, superblocks benefit the economy as well. Take for instance the Pobleno superblock. 20 or so local businesses have opened up since its transformation, increasing the local commerce activity by over 30%. Not to mention, of course, that 75% of the area that was once occupied by cars was now freed up as well. Regardless though, 503 superblocks would quite literally transform Barcelona into undoubtedly one of the best cities in Europe. This is a photo of Barcelona's green space before the 503 superblocks, and what it would look like after. Yeah, incredible. If the plan is executed correctly, journeys by private vehicles, which currently make up 1.2 million trips per week, would fall by 230,000 due to an increased use of public transport, cycling, and walking. This would help contribute to a total of up to 60% of the traffic area freed up for public space and green infrastructure. It would also literally save lives. A study done in 2019 found that with the full implementation of the 503 superblocks, Barcelona could prevent 667 premature deaths from these 5 factors. But there is one problem to all this, and it's that making a city greener ends up making it more unaffordable. It's known as green gentrification. Every superblock that has been created, even with its successful results, has led to the gentrification of the area. Locals are pushed out, foreign money is moved in. It's a problem that is still being researched, but has to be solved in order for Barcelona to reach its full potential. Thank you for watching.